What's up, guys? My name is Lulu and these are my books. Today we're refilming this video because I posted this video about a month and a half ago, and then someone commented on the video. It already had 97 views, which would very surprise me that nobody had commented on this before. But someone commented that all of my media did not load in, and I didn't realize it. So I had to mark that video as private, and thank you to that person who pointed that out to me. But I have to refilm this video because I can't just re-edit it over that video because the media slots, it just ruined the entire shot, the entire take and everything. So I have to redo this video. So welcome to Books I Will Never Read. So we're not going to spend a lot of time just like in this intro. Let's get in and start talking about these books I'm never going to read, because I have actually added a couple. I've added one more category. So let's get in with it, shall we? The first book, Twilight. Twilight. This one should be self-explanatory. I'm not a romance person, one, and B, Twilight is just not in my vein of what I would read, and I just don't want it at all. I really don't. I never read Twilight growing up. This was not one of my gateways. However, I don't want to do anything. I've also already watched all the movies, and I go back to them every now and again just for because they're on Amazon Prime. I can watch them on Prime, and I find them very, very funny. But like, I don't read them. I don't watch them for like any amount of like, oh, they're so good. No, they're bad, but they're funny but they're funny bad. Especially with the whole CGI baby. It's really funny. Anyways, that's one. 50 Shades of Grey. I'm never reading this because it started off as Twilight fanfic. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, Twilight BDSM fanfic. Okay, right. Also, what's funny is that there are stories on Wattpad that mimic the 50 Shades format that are actually better than 50 Shades. And I find that absolutely fucking hilarious. There are some good books on Wattpad, I'm just saying, but I find it very funny when there are traditionally published books that are worse than what people can come up in their minds at 14. But anyways, let's move on. The From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this one has an interesting kind of story for me. I did want to read them at one point. I did. Until I started like reading like I started like watching some Booktok videos of people talking about it, and I was like, oh, it sounds kind of good. Let's see. And the concept, and then I read the description on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, oh, this concept is actually really nice. And then I watched like someone reading, like having a spoiler-free experience log reading this book, and I was like, what? No, there's no way. So I did some more digging. I did a lot of digging. And apparently these books get worse the further in you go. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Because people tend to really like the first two books. And then it's around book 3 where people just fall out of the series. Because apparently the third book is mostly like, oh, nothing fucking happens. They're just kind of wandering around and like dancing around the subject that they're supposed to be saving the world, but it's not really happening. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, what? Huh? Does that make any sense? Probably not. But honestly, I don't think I could start a series that I know that I would never finish. Especially since I'm the type of person who likes to read the physical books. I'm not going to buy those books with the with knowing that I probably will not be able to continue with the series. I just can't do that. It would be literally a waste of money. And I never thought I'd ever say that in regards to books. Never did. Never really thought of that. But anyways, next is any Colleen Hoover book. any Colleen Hoover book, because I've seen a lot of what's happening with Colleen Hoover's books right now. And like, personally, I like watching people trash on her books because they're very funny, and I'm like, that feels about right for a Coho book. Crimson Rouge, he did a very good video on a November 9, and it was literally 3 hours of him trashing on the relationship in the book, and I was like, yes, thank you. And then Mel Reeds also did a video reading Ugly Love, It Starts With Us, and November 9, and I was like, and that was an interesting video in and of itself. So and then I watched with Cindy. She was like with Cindy Reeds or something eventually, but I watched her video, and she was like, she read Verity. She read Verity, and I was like, and Verity was one that I hadn't read and I hadn't heard much about, because I know a lot of people like it, but I never knew why. And then I watched her video, and I was like, oh, okay, I see. Everybody who reads this book is a little home wrecker. I'm kidding, of course. Slightly. But genuinely, I don't know why people like Coho's books. I really don't, especially with the content that they have. I just don't get it. I really don't. However, personally, I read November 9. Yes, I did. I read November 9. This was in my formative years when I was just a little baby fetus book girly, right? And I was in my reading cake. I had read The Hunger Games. I had read the Infernal Devices trilogy. I had done all of that back to back. And then I decided, let's get out of fantasy a little bit. So I decided I would read November 9 by Colleen Hoover, because it was in my middle school library, because it was considered YA at the time. Right? I was like 12 or 13. I read that book and I was like, what? Like, even my little 13-year-old brain was like, this isn't right. This ain't correct. This is not good. No. And, yeah, so that turned me off of romance for ever. Like, within November 9, just in general, I'm just going to say this. I don't know what's romantic about the guy who burned down your house trying to get it in with you. I don't know what's so romantic about the guy who burned down your house taking your virginity. I don't get it. I really don't. Especially since Ben, as a male protagonist, was so bad. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, he was pretty much an incel. Like, literally, because he essentially just expected the main girl, what was her name? Fallon? Yeah, Fallon. To essentially just, like, read the manuscript. He essentially expected her to read that manuscript and come to forgive him. And she does, because Colleen Hoover doesn't give her main girl characters, any backbone whatsoever. But genuinely, I don't get why that's considered a cute, fluffy romance. I really don't. Anyways, moving along. Divergent. Okay, so Divergent is, like, I don't have anything against it. I really don't. But here's what I've heard, and I've actually read Allegiant. I read Allegiant. I didn't realize it was, more than one. I watched the movie, the first Divergent movie, and the first Divergent movie was really good. Really, really good. And then I read Allegiant, and I was like, what the hell is this? Not just because I didn't understand anything, because I hadn't read the previous two books, but also, like, there was so much in that book that just didn't make sense. Like, just from a plot standpoint that I remember. That was one thing. But also, it's just like, what on earth did Divergent turn into? Because I read I watched a couple of videos on, like, what people were saying about Divergent, now that, like, at least 10 or 20 years, 10 years have passed since it was published. And people are like, yeah, it wasn't really that good in the first place. I don't know why everybody was like hung up on it. And I was like, I can tell you why everybody was hung up on it, because it came out like right after the Hunger Games, and the Hunger Games movies are actually good. Just saying. Just saying. It was one of those bandwagon books. Yeah. Didn't mean it was actually good. I know Veronica Roth has published a couple more books. I haven't read any of them, but yeah, I haven't read any of her books, but I know she's still publishing books, so hopefully those are better. The Plated Prisoner series by Raven whoever. I forget her last name, honestly. But here's something. I wanted to read these books. I really wanted to, because Guild sounded so cool and the covers were also really pretty. So I was like, I'm going to read it on Kindle Unlimited. I'm going to read the first chapter on Kindle Unlimited. I'm going to read the first chapter on Kindle Unlimited and see if I want to buy these books. So I read the first chapter. It starts off with an orgy. Right? And then it's like, oh yeah, the king has this whole like strip club, essentially. He has this whole like prostitution ring. And I'm like, what? And then our main character is like his favorite, and she has these ribbons, these magic ribbons from her back that are like, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. None of it. Like, and here's something interesting. The writing was not bad. It wasn't bad at all. It was actually pretty good. My biggest problem, was that the plot made no fucking sense. And, like, that's usually never the problem. Usually my problem is the writing. But, like, when you have a plot that doesn't make sense, it doesn't matter how good your writing is. Like, it still sucks. Just gonna say that. Next is Hunting/Haunting Adeline. Yeah, this one should be self-explanatory. I'm not a dark romance girly, and I don't think I ever will be. But this is a specific brand of dark romance that I just don't think I'd ever be able to recover from if I actually read it. Because I've seen the content warnings. I've seen them. I have seen them. Do I want to go into it? No. Because I'm already traumatized and I haven't read the book. But I'm not reading them. I'm not gonna do that. Also, Adeline is the name of Addie from Addie LaRue, and like you are not going to ruin. You're not going to ruin that for me. Okay. Oh God. Icebreaker. This is a Icebreaker. I think the author's name is Hannah Grace. Not sure. Icebreaker. So the reason I'm never reading this book is because, like, I wanted to read it at one point. Because I was, like, so interested. I'm like, why is everybody, like, so hyped up on this book? Because everything I've seen for promotion of this book has been, advertising the smut. And, like, I'm just here. I'm like, okay, let me see what the plot of this book actually could possibly be about. Because I was interested. So I read the back of the book and I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I accidentally opened it to a random page and I just decided to start reading. Immediately, it's the characters having sex, like BDSM level sex. I'm like, aren't these supposed to be teenagers? And what bothered me even more was that the smut wasn't even good. Like, everybody was talking about how the smut in this book is so spicy and it's so good. And I'm like, no, it's not. It really isn't. Like, I couldn't even finish the first paragraph because it was so cringe. I'm like, what the I just couldn't. I really couldn't, man. Because it's like, how are you going to advertise a book on one thing and have that one thing not be that good? That was my problem. That was my main problem with the book. So yeah, I'm not going to read it. Next on my list is Zodiac Academy. Okay, this one should also be kind of self-explanatory, but like I've actually read like at least half of the first book of Zodiac Academy. And the only reason I got halfway through was because I found it so ridiculous that I had to laugh. And then halfway through the first book, I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. Because what this essentially is doing, it's trying to set up, because first off, what made me laugh was we have twin main characters, Darcy and Tori Vega. So Tori Vega, I'm like, okay, I have to go. I have to see where this goes. And then we have 4 main male characters, right? And I'm like, ah, shit, is this about to be a reverse harem? a little bit. And then we also have like a really hot and sexy mentor. So I'm like, okay, full reverse harem. How is this gonna go? And then I read through the book and I'm like, it's setting up a teacher to student romance plus like some sort of romance between some of the main boys with like, I think Tori. And then Darcy doesn't have any personality beyond the fact that she has blue hair. It's actually hilarious. It's actually really funny. I just couldn't, man. Like reading through the first like half of the book was actually really funny. I will say that. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't good. However, it was just bad enough that I just couldn't knock it. I really couldn't. I really couldn't. It was a mess. It was a mess, man. But anyways, not reading the Zodiac Academy books, especially since there's supposed to be 12 of them. I'm like, oh, hell no. Next on my list, Lightlark, by Alice Astor, I think, is her last name? Yeah. So, this cover is amazing. It's gorgeous. I love it. However, I didn't know this book existed until I watched the 7-hour video from Crimson Rouge on this book and how much he hated it. Because he does deep dives into books like this. And I'm like, wow, man. He does some very deep dives, which I always find very interesting. But like, I know what's going to happen in this book. I know exactly what's happening. I know. And honestly, I'm not interested enough to like read the full book so that I could go on to the next book that's coming out. And I don't even remember the name of that. But like, it doesn't sound good, and it also doesn't sound like something I'd be interested in. It really doesn't. It just doesn't. I just can't really, truly, to be honest with you. So anyways, next book is well, it's more of a series. Red Queen. This came out in like the early days, not really early days, but like midway through like Booktube and its popularity. And to be honest, I personally don't know what it's about, and I honestly kind of don't care. Because this is one of those books that just didn't stick out to me. It just really didn't. Like, the covers were kind of cool and everything, but it just, like, the series just didn't stick out to me as a whole. It just really didn't. The Hades Saga. Like, okay, so I didn't know this was a thing until I saw, like, the whole, like, Touch of Darkness books and whatnot. And then I saw, like, one of the new ones, and it had a nice cover. So I immediately was like, oh, what's it about? And it was like, Hades now had Persephone, mind, body, and blood. And I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm like, no. Because book descriptions that start out like that, I'm like, no. Because it's usually meaning, like, some sort of dark romance. And not very well done at all. So I was like, no, thank you. So yeah. The Summer I Turned Pretty series is also one I'm never gonna read because, like, I'm just not interested. I'm not a romance girly, and also these books, if I really wanted to, like, I've heard that the TV show, movies, whatever, is better. And that's a problem for me. And then, this is a tentative no, for one specific reason and one specific reason only. I'm not gonna read Game of Thrones until I know it does not end the same way the show ends. I can't. Because here's the thing. I hate how Game of Thrones ends. It doesn't end in any satisfying way. It truly just doesn't. So I need to know that George R.R. Martin is going to finish these books and it does not end the same way that the actual Game of Thrones series ended. Granted, the Game of Thrones series is amazing. I will not talk about season 8 because season 8 doesn't really exist to me. But what I will say is that I'm only going to read the books once the last one comes out, and and it's confirmed through like Tumblr that it does not end the same way the show ends. That is my only caveat. That is my only. So anyways, Iron Flame. This should be obvious that I'm not reading this because I hated Fourth Wing. So I'm not going to read that. I do not think you could catch the dust. I canceled that pre-order so fast. Genuinely. I still need to sell my copy of Fourth Wing, actually. Because those things are going for like more than $400 now on Mercari. I've seen it. I'm like, damn, okay. And if you don't think I'm about to contribute to capitalism in that way. Anyways. The next is something that I've been saying for like months now. A Court of Silver Flames and any other ACOTAR book that comes out. Unless it's interesting. Unless I actually find it interesting. Because here's the thing. I give no shits about Feyre's sisters, Nesta and Elaine. I give no shits about them. Like, literally, they're literally the two most useless characters in these books. Like, seriously. I'm not about to read an 800-page book of Nesta getting boned by the god that is Cassian. Because I swear to God, Nesta doesn't deserve him. Nesta, she really doesn't. Because this girl, literally, she tried to cope with becoming a Fae by blaming her sister, essentially relying on the sister that she criticized when that sister was literally keeping her alive and still is, right? And is literally, I could not care less about Nesta even if I tried. I genuinely, because Nesta just isn't a compelling character. She really isn't, at least in my opinion. She's just a bitch. And then Elaine is even worse because she's both uncompelling and useless. Cause like, I saw this on Bookstagram. Like, how do you love gardening, but you never thought to plant a vegetable? How? Anyways, I'm not reading any books that center around them. If SJM wants to make a book centering around Feyre, Rhysand, and Nyx and their little baby, yeah, I will read that. But literally what I did for A Court of Silver Flames, because I wanted to know about like what happened with Feyre and Rhysand, I literally looked up a Tumblr post, and that gave me everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. I just needed to know. I just wanted to know about Feyre and Nyx. That's it. That's fucking it. So yeah, I'm not reading any more ACOTAR books unless they focus on Feyre, Rhysand, and Nyx. But those are probably also going to involve like whatever happens with Elaine and Nesta. So I'm like, do I really want to read it? So I'm saying I'm probably never going to read them. But anyways, guys, that brings this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. I post weekly on this channel, so don't miss out. Also, if you want to see, leave me comments down below. What you want to see me post, what you want to see on my TBR, what I should move up my TBR. Or just leave me comments about what you're currently reading or what you're doing recently. I always get really excited when I see your comments. It makes me feel so happy and appreciated. Anyways, guys, I love you, Lumas. Bye!